Hello, this is Teacher Eugene and welcome to our class. In the analysis of data, we have what we call summary measures, which are numbers that measure various properties of data. There are important types of summarizing measures, the measures of central tendency and the measures of variability. In this lesson, we're going to learn about the measures of central tendency, which include mean, median, and mode. Therefore, we're going to define and illustrate the measures of central tendency, mean, median, and mode, and calculate the mean, median, and mode of a given dataset. As we have discussed in our previous lessons, statistics deals with datasets, and datasets are often just collections or groups of information, which are usually numbers. These numbers may be the result of an observation, scientific measurements, surveys, interviews, or any other data collection methods. For example, you might record the ages of each member of your family into a dataset, or you might measure the weight of each of your friends and list them into a dataset. Those datasets are small and easy to understand, but you could have much bigger datasets. An example of a really big dataset might contain the age of each student from grade 7 to grade 10 in your school, or the total number of votes each candidate in an election. Those datasets could contain a lot of different numbers, and if you had to look at big dataset all at one time, it would be difficult to make sense of it. All you can say is, wow, that's a lot of numbers. But that's where mean, median, and mode can really help us out. They are the three measures of central tendency that can provide us with useful, simple information about the dataset, allowing us to see the big picture and understand what the data means about the world we live in. So let's learn what each measure really is and find out how to calculate them for any particular dataset. Let's start with the mean. You may not have heard of something called the mean before, but I know you've heard of the average. Well, that's good news, because mean means average. Mean and average are just two different terms for the exact same property of a dataset. The mean or average is an extremely useful property. To understand what it is, let's look at a simple dataset that contains 5 numbers. As a visual aid, let's also represent those numbers with stacks of blocks whose heights correspond to their values. 3, 5, 2, 4, 6. Right now, since each of the 5 numbers is different, the stacks of blocks are all different heights. But what if we rearrange the blocks with the goal of making the stacks the same height? In other words, if each stack could have the exact same number, what number would that be? Well, with trial and error, you'll see that we have enough blocks for each stack to have a total of 4. That means that the mean or average for our original dataset would be 4. In this particular dataset, some of the numbers are greater than 4 and some are less. But if we level it to make them the same number, they would all become 4. So that's the concept of mean. It's the value you'd get if you flatten all the different values into one consistent value. But is there a way that we can use math to calculate the mean of a dataset? If you were presented with a big dataset, it would be very inconvenient if we had to use stacks of blocks to do it. There's gotta be an easier way, right? To learn the mathematical procedure for calculating the mean, let's start with blocks again. But this time, instead of using trial and error, let's use a more systematic way to make the stacks all the same height. This way involves a clever combination of addition and division. Remember that our goal is to have 5 stacks that all have the same number of blocks, right? So first, let's add up all the numbers, which is like putting all the blocks we have into one big stack. Adding up all the numbers, or counting all the blocks, shows that we have a total of 20. Now we divide that number or stack into 5 equal parts. Since the stack has a total of 20 blocks, dividing it into 5 equal stacks means that we'll have 4 in each. So 20 divided by 5 equals 4. So that's the math procedure you use to find the mean of a dataset. It's just two simple steps. First, add up all the numbers in a set, and then you divide the total by how many numbers you added up. The answer you get is the mean of a dataset. Let's use that procedure to find the mean age of the members of this good-looking family here. If we add them all up, the total number of ages is 216 years. But then, we need to divide that total by the number of the family members, which is 6. 216 divided by 6 is 36. So that's the mean age of all the members in this family. Alright, that's the mean. Now what about the median? The median is the middle of a dataset. It's the number that splits the dataset into two equal size groups, much like two teams playing tug of war. The median is the marker or flag placed in the center of the rope, dividing the players into two teams with equal number of members. In the case of our dataset, one half contains members that are greater than the median, and the other half contains members that are less than the median. Sometimes, finding the median of a dataset is easy, and sometimes it's hard. That's because finding the middle value of a dataset requires that its members be in order from the least to the greatest, or vice versa. And if the dataset has a lot of numbers, it might be hard to put them in the right order if they are not arranged. So to make things easier, let's start with a really basic dataset that is not in order. 5, 1, 6. It's pretty easy to see that we can put this dataset in order from the least to the greatest value just by switching the 5 and the 1. There. Now we have the dataset 1, 5, 6. And finding the median or middle of this dataset is easy. It's just 5, because 5 is located exactly in the middle. Before we try a harder problem, I want to point out that sometimes the mean and the median of a dataset are the same number. But they are not the same all the time. In the case of our first dataset, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the median is 4 and the mean is also 4. As you can see if we rearrange the numbers or follow the procedure we learned to calculate the mean. But what about our second and simple dataset? We determined that the mean of this dataset is 4. But what about the median? Well, the median is the middle, and since this dataset is already in order from least to greatest, it's easy to see that 5 is located in the middle. So for this dataset, the mean is 4, but the median is 5. So to find the median of a set of numbers, first you need to make sure that all of the numbers are in order, and then you can identify the members that exactly in the middle by making sure that there's an equal number of members on either side of it. Okay, so far so good. But some of you may be wondering, what if a dataset doesn't have an obvious middle? Let's take this dataset as an example. 3, 4, 5, 6. There isn't a member in the middle that splits the set into two equally sized groups. If that's the case, we can actually use what we learned about the mean to help us out. If the dataset has an even number of members, then to find the median, we need to take the two middle numbers and calculate the mean or average of those two. By doing that, we're basically figuring out what number would be exactly halfway between the two middle numbers, and that number will be our median. For example, in the set 3, 4, 5, 6, we need to take the two middle numbers, 4 and 5, and find the mean of those numbers. We can do that by adding 4 and 5 and then dividing by 2. 4 plus 5 equals 9, and 9 divided by 2 is 4.5. So the median of the dataset is 4.5. Even though you can find the number 4.5 in the dataset, it's still the median because it represents the middle of the dataset and it splits the members into two equal groups. I hope you can now differentiate mean and median. But what about the mode of a dataset? What does that mean? Well, mode is just a technical word for the value in a dataset that occurs most often. This set has 9 members, but some of the values are repeated. If we rearrange them, you can see that there's 1 1, 2 3s, 1 4, 3 5s, 1 8, and 1 9. The mode of this dataset is the value that occurs most often or most frequently. So that would be 5, since there's 3 5s. The mode is the number that's repeated most often. If each member in a dataset occurs only once, it had no mode. But it's also possible for a dataset to have more than one mode. Here's an example of a dataset like that. In this set, we have the letters of the word cabbage. The letter A is repeated twice, but so is the letter B. That means both of them are entitled to be the mode of the dataset. This set has two modes, A and B. Okay, so now you know what the mean, median, and mode of a dataset are. Let's put all that new information we used in a real-life example. Suppose there's this guy who sells coconuts. Here's a table showing how many coconuts he sold for his 8-hour shift. Let's find the mean, median, and mode of this dataset. First, to find the mean, we need to add up all the number of coconuts sold in each hour. You can do the addition by hand or you can use a calculator if you want to. Either way, be careful since that's a lot of numbers to add up and we don't want to make any mistake. The answer I get is 120. So that's the total number he sold for the day. But to get the mean sold for each hour, we need to divide that total by the number of hours, which is 8. 120 divided by 8 is 15. So the mean or average is 15. Next, to find the median of the data set, we're going to have to rearrange the 8 data points in order from smallest to largest so we can figure out what the middle value is. Since there's an even number of members in this set, we can't just choose the middle number. So we're going to have to pick the middle two numbers and then find the mean of them. 12 and 15 are in the middle since there's an equal number of data values on either side of them. So we need to take the mean of 12 and 15. That's easy. 12 plus 15 equals 27, and then 27 divided by 2 is 13.5. So the median number of coconuts sold is 13.5. That means that in half of his shift, he sold more than 13.5, and in half of his shift, he sold less than 13.5. Last of all, let's identify the mode of this dataset if there is one. Well, let's see. There's 2 15s in the dataset. Oh, but there's 4 12s. That looks like the most frequent number. So 12 is the mode of this dataset. It's the result that occurred most often. Sometimes the hardest part about mean, median, and mode is just remembering which is which. So remember that the mean means average, median is the middle, and mode starts with MO, which can remind you that it's the number that occurs most often. Alright, so that's the basics of mean, median, and mode. They are the 3 really useful properties of datasets, and now you know how to find them. As they say, practice makes perfect. You need to do more than just watch videos, so I've made a short assessment for you to do. I'll be sending the link in our chat group and make sure that you try finding the mean, median, and mode on your own. As always, thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.